let's be honest. Most of us probably skim past the European porcelain displays in museums. Like, we get it. The British really like tea, and the French love anything ornately superfluous. But as is typically the case with archived and exhibited objects, the historical significance of European porcelain goes beyond raising the social gatherings of the elite to an aesthetic apex. But instead, it is deeply entangled within systems of power, whether as a means of maintaining it, shifting it, controlling it, or challenging it, and still has meaning today. But in order to understand why museums persist in exhibiting this material, which today is often considered kitsch at best and vulgar at worst, we need to understand how it came to enter Western civilization at all. The short answer is China wanted their taxes paid in silver. That's a hyperbole. But they were switching their currency from paper to silver. The taxes were just a natural consequence of doing so. And since sea trade routes across the Atlantic opened in the mid-16th century, the exchange of European silver for Chinese porcelain became not only feasible, but endowed porcelain with a new cultural, economic, and artistic significance, and eventually became an instrument of political propaganda. In 1708, German alchemist, this guy, discovered the secret to hard-paced porcelain with the support of Augustus II, aka Augustus the Strong, aka Elector of Saxony, aka King of Poland. France's discovery of porcelain came a few decades later in Sèvres, and the French did what the French do best. Made it really French. This enfrenched or franchised adaptation of Chinese porcelain design became known as Rococo and was lapped up by Louis XIV, XV and XVI. Louis XIV, who had his porcelain collection displayed in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. Porcelain revolutionised the way those of royalty, nobility and aristocracy dined. Formal banqueting became a prestigious etiquette and gave rise to commissioned service sets. Louis XVI's service set consisted of over 400 pieces and was quoted to take a decade to complete. The service of Louis XVI included motifs of classical literature, which served as a signifier of France's culture, erudition, wealth, aesthetic discrimination, and ultimately moral superiority. But there are two ways in which the idea of porcelain being used as a political instrument becomes most concrete by comparison. The first is in post-revolution France, when Napoleon's 178-piece service of the Empire, commissioned for his wedding breakfast to the Habsburg Archduchess, depicts the cultural and political triumphs of the Empire and French imperial expansion. This facilitated significant artistic changes, from implicit political symbolism based on allegory and aesthetic indulgence to implicit iconography. The frivolous Rococo designs associated with the French monarchy were demoted in favour of the neoclassical, influenced by Etruscan art. By re-engaging with Etruscan design, France situated itself parallel to the military and cultural excellence of ancient Rome, whose art was also heavily influenced by the Etruscans. The second comparison is seen in England, where, although also a monarchy, porcelain was made for the public sphere rather than the court, and depicted contemporary figures such as playwrights, stage actors, poets, politicians associated with the Enlightenment, and contemporary military heroes. English porcelain factories were entrepreneurial and commercial, and relied upon market and consumer success. Thus, they had to appeal to the people as a product of national loyalty, and define itself as a promoter of the public sphere rather than the absolutist representational order. As the Industrial Revolution sped up, two things happened to porcelain. Firstly, mass production came into effect, and porcelain dolls became one of the first items to be mass-produced and circulated. And secondly, porcelain became endowed with utilitarian significance, from telegraph line insulation, railway friction prevention, indoor plumbing, and later, data. And not surprisingly, the Third Reich latched onto porcelain's history as a prestigious German art form, the embodiment of the German soul. It was in Nazi Germany that porcelain regained its propaganda utility, with custom-made dinnerware for the German army in World War II, figurines, and gifts for the SS. As mentioned with Napoleon's service, all political symbolism was lost in favour of explicit iconography. In contemporary society, the association between objects and their consumers as extensions of their self, more significant than the self itself, is not only more viable, but more or less constitutes the backbone of Western culture. But some artists who still choose to work with porcelain as their medium do so as a way to challenge this ideology, which, according to Guy Debord, functions as a quasi-religion today. By choosing porcelain as their medium, these artists are realising a quote from Marshall McLuhan, who said, "The medium is the message," whereby it is the medium that completes the artwork more than the content itself. So we return to these artefacts. But hopefully now with some insight into porcelain's connection, not just with English tea time and superfluous French luxury, but with revolutionary changes to world trade and economics, art and cultural values, scientific and technological advancements, politics, propaganda, ideology, etc., etc., etc. And with a more ubiquitous insight into how those in positions of power wield that power as the privilege to choose something as seemingly trivial as the material we drink our tea from.